smoke the busy, but we can always share some ditties. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome, guys. That's right. Miss Liz is back, and we have Lance Robinson in the back of the studio, and we're going to have some incredible tea because everybody that knows Miss Liz knows that Miss Liz likes to go down these deep conversations and space travel and time travel, all that good stuff. We're going to have a really good time tonight with Lance. So, but before we get started, we're going to get everybody over to Miss Liz's YouTube channel. Give it a little quick subscribe, because then you can check out all of the incredible tea times that are there. If one resonates with you, you can get that shared with your loved ones, co-workers, friends, all of that good stuff, because each of these tea times will make a difference if we start sharing them and getting them out there. If you're listening on Spotify, check out Tea Time with Miss Liz. That's right. I like to keep you on your toes, and I like to switch it up a little bit. So Miss Liz's Tea Times and Tea Time with Miss Liz. So look for those two platforms. So before we get started, we're going to do a disclaimer, and then I'm going to do an intro of my incredible guest, and then we're going to spill some tea. And tonight's tea is incredible tea. So it's uncertainty, contribution, and faith. That's right. The tea that we are serving tonight is that. So the disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicated to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I'm Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotional triggering subjects. Listeners and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of this discussion, you are welcome to contact me at my email, bookingmissliz@gmail.com, or my link tree, Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. Miss Liz myself welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect those wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Now let me give you a little bit on who I have sitting in the back, and let's get them out here. Well, tonight I'm honored to share the table with Lance Robinson, a storyteller, visionary, and explorer of the human spirit. Through his work, Lance bridges the mysteries of the cosmos and the truth of everyday lives, showing us how stories connect humanity to something greater. His topic this evening, Stories Among the Stars, where humanity meets the infinity, invites us to look beyond the horizon, to imagine boldly, and to discover how our stories ripple out into the universe itself. Please join me in welcoming Lance Robinson to the Tea Time tonight. Welcome, Lance.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It is an honor to have you here. So I'm going to take you way back like I take all my guests back. So who was Lance as a little guy, and who's Lance now?
Wow. I was a brainy but adventurous kid, I guess. I liked science. I liked the outdoors. I was always into exploring. I grew up on a house in the Canadian prairies at the edge of our city, and I could step out onto the street, turn my head left, and see beyond the city out to the horizon that was like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 kilometers away. And that, yeah, that perspective, I think, was, big open skies and big unlimited horizon was, I don't know, somehow infused into me.
I wanted to take you down that little road because at the age of 6, you got hooked on science fiction. So what hooked you, and what book was it that got you?
I think at first, actually, it was TV shows. It was Star Trek, and then maybe a couple of years later, by the time I was 8 or 9, I don't remember exactly what year, Space 1999 came on TV. So at first, it was television. But yeah, it wasn't too much longer before I was reading fantasy and science fiction. So I received the box set of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings as a birthday gift. I checked out science fiction books from our school library. And then soon I really got into first Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov, and then eventually branched out into others as well.
So it says here that you're a space travel nut. So you want to tell us a little bit about space travel nut?
I am. Well, it's when I'm not doing, in my daily life, I've got a very different profession. I've got some other different hobbies, but when I've got some spare time and I just want to relax, I will often just go to YouTube and watch science videos, especially videos about astronomy and space travel. It's been an interest of mine for a long time. When I first went to university, we had an option for electives, and I needed a science or math elective. It was an easy choice for me. I took astronomy. It's just, I've been fascinated at the possibilities of humanity one day reaching out to other planets and eventually to the stars.
So Lance, what does humanity mean to you?
I think that we often don't appreciate the specialness of the human race. And now sometimes we swing the pendulum the other way, and we've had this smug attitude about ourselves, which translates into a condescending and negative attitude towards nature, towards other creatures. I kind of think to a certain extent, we swung the pendulum the other way and lost sight of what does make us special. I'm an optimist. I believe humanity has a wonderful future ahead of it, but we've got to work to get there. And the potentials are limitless in the human mind and the human heart.
And we don't speak about that enough, right? It's the human mind and human heart.
Yeah.
So how can we change that, Lance?
Well, I think one of the ways is stories. Human beings crave stories, and a series of random events pop up, and if no one tells a story about it, you will weave them together in your head. You will find connections in there, one way or another. We need to participate in stories, and so I think the best literature and the best art, whether it's drama, film, poetry, or fiction, the best of it is something that uses those stories to get human beings thinking and feeling, to get them to transcend their current perspective and see the world from other people's shoes, see the world from other perspectives, see the world from a future perspective when the time we're in now has been put into perspective. I think that's what the best stories and the best literature do.
And I think storytelling is a new way of changing the world as well, because by hearing the stories, we continue the legacies of, ancestries and the history and the past and the future, right? It's almost like a time travel, right? So you got the past, the present, and the future, just like the universe and the galaxies, right? Is until we start sharing those stories, we're not going to understand those universes and existence of other identities and existence of the planets, right?
Sure. And well, I mean, also, to have an understanding of other people here on Earth. I mean, that's one of the things, I mean, of different kinds of art forms. I think this is one that the novel is particularly good at, is instilling empathy, is getting the reader to be able to imagine themselves in the shoes of another person. And so, yeah, so whether it's the perspectives about our future, perspectives about the possibility for hope, perspectives about other human beings and what they may be going through or have gone through, this is what good storytelling can do.
Well, Lance, I want to get into your tea, and then I'm going to jump into some of these questions that came in for you. I want to talk about the uncertainty, contribution, and faith. Why those three words for your tea?
Uncertainty, contribution, and faith. Yes. I mean, from time to time, I do some planning. In fact, one of my degrees, my master's degree, was in planning. In my own life, I do a bit of planning. But if I'm being honest, for the most part, I've got some principles, I've got some values, I've got some direction, but the world takes me where it takes me. There is just so much uncertainty, and that's why I chose that word. There's so much uncertainty in what's going to happen from one day to the next, and trying to have too much control over it, trying to plan out too much, I think is ultimately emotionally unhealthy. And so I've been, little by little in my life, I've been trying to embrace uncertainty, embrace the not knowing what tomorrow might be, and from time to time, taking risks with my next choice in life because it feels right, or because there's a new possibility I want to explore, not necessarily knowing where. Am I going to have a job at the end of that? How much money am I going to make? Will I be able to pay the bills in the long term? I plan. I try to take care of those things, but I'm also trying to accept the uncertainty and deal with it, and accept some of these things we'll figure out as we go along.
And your contribution, where that word?
Contribution. I think that's where it's easiest and most fulfilling to find purpose in life, is making a contribution to your family, to your community, to your country, to the whole human race. Making a contribution for me, is what gives life meaning. And so whether that's in my daily job, in my fiction writing, in my interactions with my family, what it may be, I'm trying to do something that makes a contribution to the world.
And faith.
I think that ties in, especially goes back to the uncertainty. Going forward, moving ahead, being willing to live with the uncertainty requires faith, and not just personally, but the world today. Looking around, listening to the news, it can be very depressing, and I think having faith is absolutely essential to get through the day and to move forward. And so, yeah, in fact, a lot of my fiction is about faith, trying to figure out and find where faith comes from. What does it mean for me? How deep is my faith? These are kinds of questions my characters are sometimes asking themselves.
Well, I think your tea is really incredible, because it really took us down a path, right? Like, of understanding humanity in a different way.
Yeah.
With the uncertainty of humanity, the contribution that we put towards humanity and the faith that we have in humanity all comes together, right? So yeah. I really enjoyed that cup of tea with you. So, Lance, I want to take you on a journey because I got some questions that came in for you about your books and your work in that, and I'd like to get those out to you tonight. So,
Okay.
the first question that came in for you is: your life has taken you across continents. How has your global experiences influenced your storytelling?
Wow. So, I mean, I have experienced storytelling in other cultures, and so I think that's widened my perspective a bit. I've had experiences in diverse cultures. I've lived in South America. I spent significant amount of time in in South Asia. I've lived big chunk of time in Africa, both West Africa and East Africa. Um, I think that part of that perspective and those different experiences is recognizing the view that I have from my home, like where I lived growing up and how life is structured here. That's one way things can be organized, but other places and other cultures will do things differently. And I think that has helped widen my perspective and helped widen my as a science fiction writer, to take it another step further. Than okay, well, what's something that's different than that African culture and different than that Asian culture and different than that North American culture? What's different than all of those? What's the common thread in all of those? It's yeah, just seeing the possibilities and recognizing that the incredible diversity in human cultures, and yet at the same time, this common thread of humanity that transcends culture, and seeing that.
And I'm glad that you brought up the word diversity, because when I asked you your favorite color, you were like, I don't have a favorite color, Liz. But diversity came into play. And when you gave me diversity, then you also gave me musical notes, ideals, cultures, best manifest their beauty in diversity. So I kind of thought that that was really cool because, sometimes it makes me look deeper within myself as well, because colors don't always represent who we are or what we like or stuff like that. But
Yeah.
by you giving me that answer, you made me look into art and ideals and cultures and stuff like that. And that's kind of like what you just said with your writing skills, living in all these different continents and areas as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's diversity is potentially one of the strengths of the human race, and I think we need to embrace our cultural diversity, our religious diversity, the diversity of just different perspectives. Having people of different perspectives together, if they can learn how to work with that diversity, I think it's a powerful resource, and it's underutilized. But that's a task of finding unity in that diversity. Unity not as conformity or everyone becoming the same, or conformity. Unity as weaving together these different cultures, weaving together
Absolutely.
different ideas.
Absolutely. And we don't talk about diversity, in a correct way. We talk about everybody conforming, everybody we talk about diversity and inclusion, but we're more divided now than we ever were, I find, in the human race. How do you feel about that, Lance?
Well, yeah, and I think, yeah, I mean, diversity gets simplified down to percentages of people of different ethnic groups or genders or whatnot. Have we hired enough people? Okay, yes, check mark, you've got diversity. I think diversity at a deeper level, it needs to embrace different ways that people see things and understand the world and think about things. And that can be hard work. I think it's about learning to communicate with each other and learning to listen and understand each other. And yeah, I mean, that's also something that I've tried to capture sometimes in some of my fiction.
So I want to talk about the book that Mickey sent to me. Let's talk about it. I'm going to pull it up and then you can explain it, the cover and all of that, because I'm going to guess that you have a short story in this book, correct?
Yes, if we're talking about Writers of the Future. So Writers of the Future is this contest that's been going now for 42 years. And it is a contest that selects 12 winners each year, fantasy and science fiction. And some of the biggest what are some of the currently biggest names in fantasy and science fiction have passed through this contest in one way or another. Canadian science fiction writer Robert J. Sawyer, Nnedi Okorafor. One of the judges is Brandon Sanderson. Another one is Tim Powers. Some of the biggest names in this are associated with this contest. Either they've been judges or they themselves entered the contest or sometimes won this contest. So I was one of 12 winners. I won. The contest runs every 3 months, every quarter. I won first place for one of the quarters back in about 2 years ago now. And they pulled together the 12, the first, second, and third place winners from each quarter. And they're put together in that anthology, The Writers of the Future. So as I said, it's in its 42nd year now. Yeah, one of my short stories appeared in there.
So do you want to share a little bit about that short story in there, or should we just
Sure.
tell everybody to go grab a book?
Well, both. Both. But yeah, I'll give a little hint about it. My story was entitled 5 Days Until Sunset. And the story opens up with a young man waking up from a hibernation tank. He's been asleep for, as far as he knows, more than 100 years. And he's been part of this community of people that's going to colonize a planet in another star system. And so they've been asleep for the whole journey. He's woken up, and on the surface of this new planet, he's amazed to see that there's Earth life all over the place. There's grass, there's red-winged blackbirds, there's flowers, there's insects, and it's all, and he recognizes some of the species. And this in itself is amazing. But he also realizes that something is wrong. They weren't supposed to wake up on the surface of the planet. They were supposed to wake up on the ship, still in orbit. And the doctors who were supposed to wake up first and wake up everyone else aren't there. And so this is how the story kicks off, of him trying to find out what happened and what's the deal with this paradise that they've landed on. The story came from, it was a combination of two things, and this comes back to my space travel and astronomy nut aspect of my personality. Recently, like over the past 10 years or so, the astronomers who study extrasolar planets around other star systems, and trying to understand how many planets are out there, how common is it that other stars have planets in orbit around them, what are those planets like? Those astronomers are realizing that it is probably very common that a lot of planets are tidally locked to their star. That means the planet is like our moon with us. Our moon always shows the same face to us. So as the moon goes around the Earth, the moon turns. The moon turns once for every revolution, so we don't see the back of it. In all likelihood, a lot of planets around other stars are the same, that the planet faces the same face towards the sun. So that means one part of the planet is in permanent daylight and the other part is in permanent night. From probes that this community has sent, and they've seen the images and the data sent back, they've seen that this planet is like that, but there's life on the planet in the twilight zone. Right at where it's permanently noon, it's too hot. It's like 70 degrees or 80 degrees Celsius. And at the back, it's frozen. It's so cold, carbon dioxide freezes up. But in the twilight zone, where it's permanently sunrise or sunset, they've seen that there is life. And this is where they've landed. So that was one of two things that came into this story. The other was me asking questions about why is it that as human beings, it so often happens, we know what we need to do, and we find excuses to not do it. We find reasons to not do it. That happens to us as individuals. It's happening to us as a human race with climate change. Climate change, technically, as a technical problem, isn't all that difficult, but it's the technical questions embedded in our politics and our economics that don't want to change. And it gets time to make a decision, and we know what we need to do, but it's not happening. the community of people that have arrived as colonists on this planet are facing the same question. This world is a paradise, but it's not quite the paradise they were expecting. And that becomes what the story is about, is trying to overcome, accept the gift you've been given, and instead of insisting on the gift that you were expecting.
So it's kind of like we put a roadblock right in front of the personal growth of change, right?
Yes, we do. I mean, personal growth and collective growth, growth as a community or as a society. And yeah, that's part of what this is about. And I mean, faith comes into that story as well. It's the character's own faith and how he interprets that faith and what it means to be faithful. But where that faith meets flexibility. Can it meet flexibility, or does faith mean no, I can't be flexible on anything? So these are some of the questions I was wrestling with in the story.
So these short stories, are they like 2-3 pages long, 5 pages?
No, it was in the anthology. They're anywhere from a few thousand words, so that's maybe 3 pages, up to about 12 or 13,000 words. So mine is actually, it's a bit longer. Mine is in the book, it's probably about 25 pages or so. So it's a longest. It's technically a novelette rather than a short story. Yeah, I mean, the contest is such that it's short fiction. Anything under 17,000 words, if it's fantasy or science fiction, is fair game. And so the stories in the book are diverse, and they're all over the place, but they're all really quite delightful, with writers from United States, Canada, Malaysia, England, really a diverse group. And yeah, I mean, as I said, it's been going for 40 years. Every year a new anthology comes out with 12 new writers with new visions for the world.
I always learn something new with my guests. Like 42 years of this, and can anybody enter this, Lance? Or
so it's for early career writers. If there's, and they've got their definition, the contest website has the definition of that, the criteria. If you've published professionally and paid at professional rates, more than 3 short stories, I think it is, or more than 1 novelette, then you're not eligible. If you've won the contest before, you're not eligible anymore. So the contest really is for up and coming writers. And I have published over the years in small press magazines, that some of which didn't pay and some of which paid $50 for a story or something. So at the time I met the criteria. Since then I've been publishing in professional markets, and so if I hadn't won the contest then, I wouldn't be able to enter now, because I've graduated to professional level, I guess is how they would look at it.
So I read in your story a little bit in your bio that you stopped writing for a while. What caused you to stop?
Yeah, quite a while. Well, life is the short answer.
Kids, life.
Yeah, kids. I had kids. I had my kids were born right around the time I was starting a PhD, and life was just really full. I had activities in my faith community, so life filled up with a lot of things. But yeah, I mean, especially kids took up a lot of that energy. I guess I came back to it. It coincided with moving back to Canada. We had been living in Kenya for 7 years, and we moved back to Canada. And my kids were getting old enough that they didn't, need us watching them all the time. And felt like, I was coming home to Canada, and I felt it was also time to come home to writing. And so I got back into writing again.
So, Lance, were you born and raised in Thunder Bay, or is that where you just moved to?
No, I moved here for a job, my day job as a scientist, doing research on natural resources and the environment. No, I'm originally from Saskatchewan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was nice to see the northern towns, because I'm from Hearst, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, where is that?" And I'm like, "Way in the north."
Yeah.
So when I seen Thunder Bay, I was like, "Oh, I have family there. I have cousins there, and aunt and uncle that lived there." So I was just like, oh, it's nice to see familiar locations when I get my information. So I was just like, oh, I know that area.
Yeah.
So what has the community taught you about yourself moving to Thunder Bay, Lance?
Well, I mean, I've talked a bit about cultural diversity, and in some ways that happens in Canada too, like just within Canada. And like this is my first time living in Northern Ontario, and there's aspects of the culture here that are different than other places in Canada that I've lived. Recreation and weekends here for so many people are about going to my camp, or getting in a canoe or going fishing, and it's I mean, there is city life in Thunder Bay. I mean, Thunder Bay is not that big of a city, but there is bits and pieces of city life here. But for so many people, it's like the outdoors. And Thunder Bay is this place that is, in a sense, it's quite isolated. I mean, it's on the Trans-Canada Highway, but like it's not like southwestern Ontario where I've lived before, where one city is 20 minutes drive from another city, and that's 20 minutes drive from the next city. And Thunder Bay is like an island in a sea of trees and rocks and lakes, and
lots of lakes.
Yes, and yeah, I mean that creates a different feel as well. And so yeah, I've been taking advantage of living here now. Just a couple of weeks ago, was out with my son in a backcountry canoe trip. Just get away from canoe deep enough into Quetico Provincial Park that we had no more cell coverage, and that was a few days of bliss.
How do you feel about detaching from social media and the whole internet thing, and how do you feel about that?
I'm of two minds. I mean, I think sometimes we panic too much. I think back to when I was a kid, and I spent a lot of time in front of the TV. And I mean, I count how many hours my son spends on social media or video games, and he doesn't spend any more hours doing that stuff than I spent sitting in front of a TV. And his activities on social media or gaming is actually more interactive than what I did sitting on a couch watching TV come at me. But it is super addictive, and I need myself to, I've had to set my own boundaries and rules, and sometimes struggle to follow through in all of my rules for myself. It's a challenging thing. And so I set boundaries for my own personal social media interactions, and just mindless scrolling. I do a little bit of that, but I limit it. And when it comes to social media, like with the purpose, even that is like, got to put boundaries and a time limit on it.
Right, we got to put time on stuff, and the boundaries. Boundaries are so hard, especially in today's world where everybody is, I got to do it. I got to do it. I got to do it. No, you don't got to do it. Just take a break. Like, just go in a canoe, take a ride. I always say I want to go fishing again. Like, I haven't fished since I was 13, and I'm 51. So I haven't fished in a long time, but I remember just taking that time away with the nature and experiencing, the water and the storytelling in the boats. Do you do storytelling in the boat, in the canoe?
I haven't done. I mean, we typically do it around the campfire. So, I mean, that's been one of my things. Part of it came when I was young, when I was like a teenager and into my early 20s. Was involved with summer camp. So I was a camp counselor and then camp director. So doing storytelling as a camp counselor. But then, later family camping trips with the kids, sitting around the fire and telling ghost stories or other stories. Just entertaining ourselves without electronics.
So as a father, how do you share your love of stories, science, and nature with your children?
Luckily my son, he's enjoys the outdoor stuff. He's gotten interested in fishing, so he does a bit of fishing. I haven't had to twist his arm to come on the canoe trip with me. My daughter is grown; she lives on her own, and she's probably more of a glamper than a camper. So she's probably, you know, she'll come on a family camping trip to the campground, and as long as we're, you know, not getting too uncomfortable, but being out in nature is something that she also enjoys. So I think a lot of it's just having exposed them to that young, and for them to get the taste, because it's that just being in nature, being out in the quiet, in the wilderness, whether it's a forest or canoeing on a lake or something, it doesn't need a sales job once you're there doing it. It's once you experience it, like it'll touch you somehow. And so, yeah, that's been, yeah, just having exposed my kids to it was sort of the sales job that I needed to do, and yeah, it worked as well as it needed to.
And Lance, give me one word to describe your storytelling style.
Wow. Contemplative, I suppose. It's I'm interested in ideas. I mean, my starting point for stories is often the premise, the what if. I mean, once in a while, I've got an idea for a character, and the story starts from there, and then I figure out the plot, the world building. Is this set in the future? Is it set on a different planet? But more often than not, it doesn't start with plot. It doesn't start with a character. More often for me, it starts with an idea. What if we solved our climate change problems, but in solving them, we created some new problem? What if time travel was simply a matter of good timing or bad timing? What if we landed on a planet that was tidally locked to its star, and we're trying to survive there, and realized the planet isn't tidally locked, it's slowly rotating? Giving myself different questions, and from there, okay, whose story would that be? You know, questions like that pop up, and that leads into character and plot and so on. So contemplative, yeah. It's the ideas, and sometimes it's the starting point is geeky science ideas, and sometimes it's more sort of philosophical or moral questions. But I will typically weave both those together at some point in most of my stories.
Well, it kind of goes with the question that just came in. How do you balance your scientific mindset with your creative, spiritual side when crafting stories? So it's kind of like what you're saying here, right? As you get the ideals first, and then bring in the characters, bring in the plots, so.
Yeah. I mean, the scientific mindset is, I mean, I guess I am for the most part an analytical person. I like to analyze situations in my own personal life. Sometimes I can be a bit too analytical. But in the storytelling, I mean, ultimately it's about heart and spirit. It's about human qualities and deep human questions. And I guess the way I weave them together is I'm fascinated. I'm intellectually fascinated by the scientific ideas and the bizarre speculations and the strange and wonderful possibilities of technology in our future. But ultimately, those become a framework, or they become a scaffolding to build the story around, and the story is built on heart and spirit and human questions.
So, what are some of the recurring themes you find yourself exploring in your writing, Lance?
One of them is interconnectedness. Our interconnectedness with each other as human beings, and so what it means to craft and nurture a community or a family or a whole society, and our interconnectedness with nature. And so looking at different aspects of how societies, cultures, economics interact with the natural world and with ecosystems. So ecosystems, yeah, interconnectedness. I mean, and what it means to live a good life, I suppose, is another recurring theme. I mean, my characters are in a lot of my stories. They're often, you know, wrestling with, you know, what should I do? What is the right thing for me to do? And what, you know, what makes it the right thing to do? Trying to understand and make sense of moral and ethical questions. You know, trying to understand who they are and how to live in the world.
And another question that came in is, what roles does your work as an environmental social scientist play in shaping your fiction?
I mean, I mostly write hard science fiction, and I mean, hard science fiction is often misinterpreted. I mean, in my opinion, misinterpreted to mean it's about robots and computers and spaceships. But hard science fiction, I think what it really is it's science fiction that takes scientific plausibility very seriously. So some science fiction will deal with neurology and, you know, our latest understanding of the human mind and how it works. And some will deal with robots and space travel and astronomy. Because I'm, you know, an environmental scientist, or I'm a social scientist with all of my work focused on environmental questions and natural resources. I'm immersed in my day job in science about ecosystems and taking care of the world we're in, and that's for the most part what I like to weave into my stories. So I'm writing hard science fiction, but where I'm taking, sometimes I have elements of space travel or sort of, you know, more traditional science fiction themes in there, but more often the central premise, the central what if in the story is about some aspect of environmental science, about ecosystems and human beings' relationships.
So, Lance, what message do you want and hope the readers take away from your work about humanity and resilience?
I think that, I guess it's the sense of possibility and a sense of hope. I think a lot, you know, there's been this emerging movement in science fiction called hope punk. We had cyberpunk back in the 80s and 90s, sort of taking a revolutionary and alternative view of, you know, the previous science fiction that was very much in love with technology. Hope punk is sort of a new twist on that, where it's looking at positive and hopeful futures for the human race. I don't try to gloss over or be naive about the mess the world is in right now and the challenges we're facing, but I think there is plenty of room for hope, and part of my job as a writer is to find a pathway to that hope and to weave it into interesting and compelling stories. So I call myself a short-term pessimist and a long-term optimist. I hope it's not too long-term.
You know, when you said that you're an analyst, I do the same thing. I analyze everything. I try to figure out why it turns this way or it turns that way. It's like putting a socket together, right? Why do we have to turn it the right way? Can we not turn it the left way? What would happen if we turned it? Well, it would come off, right? It wouldn't go on. It wouldn't go on the threads. But I analyze everything and I look at situations and I'm just like, why? It's so simple. It's right there in front of us, but yet we make it so complicated. And it's kind of like what you said earlier in the show, right? Is that, you know, we put that roadblock in front of us. You know, like climate change. You know, we could change it if we just all work together instead of arguing and back and forth and looking at the solution instead of putting the roadblocks in front of us. So what book inspired you or gave you shaped you in your perspective as a writer to write in the genre that you have?
I mean, there were so many. I think maybe one that stands out in my memory as being influential was The Sheep Look Up by John Brunner.
I seen that when I did some.
Yeah. The Sheep Look Up. In fact, that's the cover of that book is one of my things hanging on the wall up there. John Brunner was a very prescient, like he tended to write near future, gritty science fiction, and he was writing in the 60s and 70s, and the stuff he wrote is like, it's like this guy had a time machine. Like he's writing about 2025. So within The Sheep Look Up he was looking at environmental destruction. Another one of the books he was looking at the growing human population. Another one he was looking at technology, and described his description of what eventually became the internet was so spot on, and just amazing. But more importantly, like he wove it into compelling stories. So yeah, The Sheep Look Up by John Brunner. He's not as well known as Asimov and Clarke and Frank Herbert, and he should be better known.
So we need to bring him to the table.
Yeah, well, I don't think he's around anymore. But
time travel, come on, Lance.
Yes.
So how do you feel about time travel? Because I love time travel. Like that's what the whole tea is about. Is it past, the present, and the future? You know, because we all have that storyline, right? Where we have a past, we have the present, and we have the future. So how do you feel about time travel?
I mean, it's as someone who loves science fiction, it's fascinating, and I love time travel stories. But I also sometimes step back, and there's a danger in time travel stories. Like often it's sort of wish fulfillment. Like if, would I go back and kill Hitler, or if I had a submarine during the time of the slave trade, could I sink some slave ships before they reach the coast of Africa? It's like, I mean, time travel can become sort of a fantasy of what I would do to make the world better. And then there's a whole other class of time travel stories where whatever the person does, everything is fixed, and they try and go into the past and change it. And instead of changing the past, they create the world we're in. And so I most enjoy time travel stories that don't do either of those things, that take you in a different direction and do something completely different. So in fact, I mean, I had one of those in my own short story collection. It was, I mean, not technically time travel, but there's this ability that exists in certain intelligent species around the world, including a few human beings have this capacity to be in the right place at the right time. Good timing. And the main character in that story, he had his timing twisted back, so everything in his life happened like 2 weeks or 2 months later than it should have. And he's, I have such bad timing. And then the aliens arrived and taught him how to control his timing. And then he goes and gets some revenge on the aliens for trying to colonize Earth. That was sort of, it was a satire, sort of a fun ride that I did on my take on a different approach to time travel.
So Lance, I noticed that you have another book here as well that I didn't get, and it's called Chasing New Suns. What's that about?
Yes, so that's my own short story collection. So I looked through stories that I published in the past in various magazines and whatnot, and I picked the best ones and put them together in that short story collection. So it's quite diverse. It's got near future speculative fiction. It's got far future hard science fiction. There's a romantic sci-fi comedy satire. And there's the story about satirical story about time travel that I just talked about. But again, so they're quite diverse. They're not set in the same world, but it's some of my best short stories. And again, the common thread across all of them, I suppose, is that human interconnectedness that I mentioned before, and characters trying to understand what it means to live a good life.
So you said comedian science fiction. So is it like characters that have a dark sense of humor?
Yes. Yes. So, well, I mean, yeah, especially that time travel story is the lead character has a dark, pessimistic, but still lovable sense of humor. And that's sort of, yeah, I mean, my own sense of humor tends towards the dry and sometimes dark. And so, yeah, I don't often write humor, but yeah, when I do, yeah, that's sort of the take I will typically do. Something a bit satirical, a bit dry, a bit cheeky.
I like cheeky. We need more cheeky. You know, we don't have enough cheeky in writing in books. We need to bring the cheeky out. Like,
yes.
So we have a couple questions here. The place on Earth that inspires you the most just came in.
The place on Earth.
Yeah, on Earth.
Wow, what an interesting question.
Right?
Yeah. It's not any one particular place, but it's the Saskatchewan prairie landscape. So just, yeah, the sky, the land, being in one of those places in Saskatchewan that it's famous for, one of those places where it's so flat and the farmer watches his dog run away for 3 days.
Yeah, Saskatchewan is like straight through. Yeah. If you've ever gone to Saskatchewan, you know what we're talking about. Like, my grandma was born in Saskatchewan, and she took us back home when I think I was like 10 years old, and I was just like, there's nothing to see but fields and fields and fields. It's like, yeah, what else is here?
Well, and you need a bit of patience for that landscape to affect you. And if you're driving in a car and you're encased in the metal and glass of the car, it's harder to experience. But if you can step out and be at a place where you're standing there and the horizon is 5 or 6 or 7 kilometers away, and the sky is just alive, and you've got this feeling that the world extends endlessly in every direction, and the sky, it's in conversation with the sky, which extends off into infinity. And there's clouds up there, and you can't tell if that cloud is 1 kilometer away or 20. And it's the word that comes to me is possibility. This possibility is woven into the landscape and the sky. So yeah, that's the place. If I had to pick one place on Earth that inspires me, it's that.
And another question came in: sunrise, sunset, or stargazing?
Oh, sunrise, sunset, stargazing. Yeah, I mean, sunrises and sunsets can be beautiful, but if I only got to do one for the rest of my life, I'd be lying on my back looking up at the stars.
Favorite star?
Favorite star? My second favorite, I'll give you two. My second favorite is Beetlejuice, just because the name sounds fun, and I enjoyed Beetlejuice the movie, which had nothing to do with the star. But just down from Beetlejuice and a little bit to the east is the brightest star in the night sky, and that's Sirius. So Beetlejuice is the left shoulder of the constellation Orion, the hunter, and Sirius is Orion's dog, or at least the constellation that Sirius is, and the brightest star in the Sirius constellation is that one.
See, I learn something new all the time.
It's easy to, if you can, Orion is like after the Big Dipper, it's probably the easiest constellation to see in the night sky, and you'll see it mostly in the winter months, and like later by January or February, if you're up in early evening and you look just to a little bit, if you're looking at Orion right side up, Sirius will be a little bit to the left, to the east, and it's the brightest star, so it's you won't miss it.
See, when you listen to Tea Time, you get a little bit of education at the same time. That's what I love about Tea Time. Well, Lance, you gave me the word integrative.
Integrative. Yeah.
Could you tell me why you gave me that word? Because when I heard that word, I was just, what? What? I've never heard that word. Sorry. You made me go Google.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I said, I'm an analytical person, and analytical is like you dig in and you unpack and you see what the pieces are. Integrative is about putting the pieces together. So it's connecting the dots. And so I think that's something that I do in my work as a scientist, is about connecting the dots between the social and the ecological. I do it in my stories where I'm connecting dots between cool and mind-blowing sciencey ideas and questions about morality and spirit and the future of the human race. What I do in my writing is connecting dots, integrating, finding how things fit together, and fitting things together that maybe weren't together before, but I look at them and say, those things can go together.
I like when I get a new work, because I'm just like, oh, okay, here, I got to do my homework. I got to get back on research, but it tells me a lot about you as well as an individual, because it kind of like the thread that connects all the dots, right? It all goes right back to humanity. It all goes back to the way that we serve and the hope of making a difference in the world. Back to your T again, of the uncertainty, contribution, and faith, right? It all connects the thread to one another.
Yeah.
So let's wrap it up with your final message to any of the youths out there that would like to write in this genre. What message would you have for them? And what message would you have for your younger self as well?
Well, okay. Well, I mean, for young folks and for old folks out there, I mean, if you're interested in writing, if you've had this idea, maybe I could write fiction. I want to write a short story. I want to try and write a novel. The most important advice is to just write. Find the time and do it. Now, there's online courses, there's YouTube videos where people will teach you, there's books that will give you some advice, and some of those are quite good. Go ahead and study those. But the most important thing is just write. Make the time and sit down and do it. And that's what you'll learn most from. So that's my advice to writers. My advice to my younger self. Wow, I don't know. Sounds like a kind of question a science fiction writer would have thought about if I had the time machine and went back to talk to myself. I mean, I give maybe just sort of a practical one. Early in my writing career, I would have told myself, go seek out other writers and find a writers group or a mentor or someone to share things with. I was spending too much time isolated in my room writing for myself, and not getting other people to see it and see my writing and critique it and so on. So that would be advice I would give myself.
And if anybody wanted to reach out to you, Lance, how could they reach out to you, and where can they find these books?
So the easiest starting point is my website, lancerobinsonwriter.com. It's on the bottom of the screen there right now, lancerobinsonwriter, all one word.com. That's got you can find my email address there, link to subscribe to my newsletter, my social media links, and so on. And there's guides there to my books. So I've got my own short story collection, Chasing New Suns. If you go to my webpage, you'll find that there. The Writers of the Future anthology comes out every year. I'm in volume 40. that one you can Google Writers of the Future, and you'll find it. They're both of them are available in all the usual online places, and yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure sitting with you, Lance, tonight and having this open conversation and getting to know a little bit about the stars and Saskatchewan and, canoe rides and all that good stuff. So thank you for joining me tonight on Tea Time. So I'm just going to wrap it up with a closing summary, and then we're going to be back on Thursday with 2 new guests, and we're going to do it all over again and get their stories out and get some more education out there for all of you guys to enjoy. So tonight's Tea Time with Lance Robinson has been a journey among the stars, a reminder that while we are small in the vastness of the universe, our stories, dreams, and humanity carry infinite meaning. Lance's words encourage us to see ourselves as part of something larger, to embrace wonder, and to honor the connections that tie us all together across time and space. Thank you, Lance, for bringing your voice and your vision to Tea Time's table, and reminding us that every story we find a piece of the infinity. Thank you.
Thanks very much. It's been fun.